Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for today, Sunday, June 29th, 2025. On today's video, we're going to be talking about newly formed Tropical Storm Barry, which is formed this afternoon or today in the southern Gulf of Mexico in the Bay of Campeche. And it is certainly an interesting formation because yesterday it formed pretty quickly, and then throughout the night it's kind of struggled to fully organize. But recon has went into Barry this morning, and they did find that the storm indeed strengthened into a tropical storm. So we now have Tropical Storm Barry, the second named storm of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. The latest information from the National Hurricane Center: maximum sustained winds are at 40 miles per hour with a minimum central pressure of 1,006 millibars, and it is located, if you're tracking it, at 20.4 north and 96.2 west, and it is moving northwest at 6 miles per hour. This is going to continue to move northwest until it makes landfall along the Mexican coastline sometime later today. And then I'm going to talk about this briefly when I show you the models towards the end of the video, but we might have to watch for something else. It looks like we're going to have the remnant of a frontal boundary come off, and some sort of low pressure will try to break off somewhere in the southeast. Lots of disagreement on whether or not there will be something in the Gulf or off the southeast, which is why we have a very broad area of development. But there is a chance that something could try to develop as we head towards later this week into the weekend, or later this upcoming week starting tomorrow. The National Hurricane Center gives that a 20% chance of occurring. I'll show you what to expect with this towards the end when we look at the models. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Pacific, I'll also show you this in a bit. We have Tropical Storm Flossie now as well. Maximum sustained winds are 40 miles per hour, and minimum central pressure is 1,005 millibars, and this is going to continue to move off to the west-northwest, and this will probably become a hurricane within the next few days here in the Eastern Pacific. But first, I'll show you a satellite imagery of Barry. Certainly an interesting looking storm. It's not very organized. In fact, if you were to look at the satellite imagery alone, you would probably not really be able to tell that this is a tropical system. But it is a tropical cyclone somehow. It is a tropical storm. I mean, you can see that there is convective bursts here blowing up. So this does have some sort of cloud cover and organization with it, but certainly not very organized. There is a lot of very strong shear that is on top of it right now, especially because of Tropical Storm Flossie, which is imparting a lot of shear onto it. But nonetheless, it was seemingly able to develop a very small circulation, and it is now Tropical Storm Barry, and it will continue to move to the northwest here and eventually make it to the Mexican coastline. And the reason why it is Tropical Storm Barry is because recon went in and they were able to find tropical storm force winds, at least very strong flight level winds. In fact, you see some of these light green barbs here. That's roughly this color over here, which is 40 knot flight level winds. And that did correlate enough almost that they were able to barely designate this as a tropical storm. So they did that, and they also found a pressure of 1,008 millibars, but I guess the extrapolated came back and they got 1,006. So this is a tropical storm somehow, and it's going to continue to move off to the northwest, and it will make a landfall sometime later tonight into tomorrow along the Mexican coastline. And it'll probably make landfall as a weak tropical storm. 40 miles per hour is what its strength is right now. Probably won't get much stronger than that, maybe 45 miles per hour. And of course, because of that, there are tropical storm warnings in effect for portions of the central and northern Mexican coastline. So do be aware that there is a tropical storm coming in. It's obviously, not a significant storm, but there will still be impacts, and that actually brings me to this next graphic, which is the rainfall. And I always say that the rainfall is the most important thing when it comes to a tropical cyclone, because rain is the number one killer when it comes to tropical systems, not the wind, especially not in this situation where we're only going to be having occasional gusts at 45 or 50 miles per hour. That is certainly, I mean, that's a nuisance, but it's not like you can't handle that. But the flooding rains is always the biggest issue, especially in a weak storm like this that is very disorganized, very spread out. So lots of rainfall over large areas, and especially with the kind of geography that we tend to have in Mexico, where there are a lot of mountains, and there are a lot of mudslides, and that can be very deadly. So keep in mind of that with Barry as it moves in. Tonight into tomorrow, there will be lots of heavy rainfall over portions of central, eastern, and northeastern Mexico. So keep in mind of that. And then we have Tropical Storm Flossie, which will also be bringing impacts to Mexico as well, and I'll show you that in a moment. But definitely looking infinitely more organized than Tropical Storm Barry does. This actually looks like a pretty organized and bona fide tropical storm, and this is probably on its way to becoming a hurricane. And you can see that there's also some rainfall being felt here along the Mexican coastline, and we actually have tropical storm watches in effect for portions of the Mexican coast, as it looks like Flossie will come somewhat close to the coastline. Won't make a direct landfall, except we might actually have to watch the Baja Peninsula, and I'll show you the GFS in a little bit, but I do remember especially yesterday, the GFS had this moving west-northwest and brought it right up into the Baja Peninsula. So Mexico is dealing with punches on both sides here, from Flossie and from Barry. And of course, Flossie might even become a hurricane. I think the National Hurricane Center forecasts that this will peak at 90 miles per hour. Maybe could be stronger, we'll see. But this will become a hurricane, and of course it will stay off the Mexican coastline. So at least along the coast here, you won't have to worry about a direct landfall. But obviously, there will be the flooding rains, and there will be the high surf and some dangerous rip currents, which will also be an impact as well, and something that you definitely cannot just completely ignore. So let's take a look at the GFS. And actually, I'm just going to show you the 60 because the 12Z is not even fully loaded yet. So let's take a look at the GFS here. Over the next several hours, you can see we have Barry here. I suppose the GFS is trying to organize Barry a little bit. I mean, very interestingly enough, if you actually look here, they show that this thing kind of jogs a little bit to a more northerly direction. I mean, if you actually look at recon, that seems to be what is happening where looks like the center reformed a little bit further to the east, and then now is moving on a more northwesterly to west-northwesterly trajectory, and you can actually see that here on the GFS, and then that moves inland over the next 24 to 30 hours, so probably overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning is when we'll get a final landfall from Barry on the Mexican coastline. And then Flossie really ramps up here, as you can see on the GFS, especially as we head into the early part of next week, definitely becomes a bona fide hurricane. Let's see what the actual, let me go to the pressure here if I can find an MSLP anomaly. How strong does this get on the GFS? Brings it down to 974 millibars, so that's probably a high-end Cat 1 to low-end Category 2, and then eventually it continues to move it off to the west-northwest. This run of the GFS actually brings it well far to the west away from the Baja Peninsula, so it looks like the Baja might not be in as much of a direct threat this time around, because I do remember that the GFS had, and I'll show you the GFS yesterday, the GFS was bringing this storm, no, it's not the 12Z, let's take a look at the 6Z yesterday. The GFS was bringing Flossie right up into the Baja Peninsula with a direct landfall. But keep in mind, especially when this does reach the vicinity of the Baja Peninsula, look at the time frame here. It's 120 hours out, and that's 5 days out. And in hurricane tracking time, that is forever. So much things can change within a matter of 5 days. I mean, we literally are seeing that play out right now in the Atlantic, where within a week, we got two named storms after everybody thought that we were on pace for a July record late start, or one of the latest starts in the Atlantic in a long time. And now look where we are. So things can change a lot. So obviously, if you're in the Baja, do not take your guard off entirely from Flossie. And just really quickly going back to the National Hurricane Center track, they are still in the cone of uncertainty. The cone does not represent, where the direct impact will be, or does not, or it, this. If you're in the cone, do not let your guard down. That's pretty much what you should take out. So if you're in the Baja Peninsula, the National Hurricane Center, especially once you get to days 4 and 5, you are still in the cone of uncertainty, meaning there's still potential that the track could change and you could be facing a direct landfall. Not forecast explicitly right now, but obviously, again, do not let your guard down. And then really quickly though, before we end off here, I want to show you here in the southeast, especially with our area of interest, our new one that the National Hurricane Center marked today, you can see what happens here. There's like some sort of trough, some sort of frontal system that ends up coming down from the southeast, and then you have a low pressure that forms at the southern end of the front, tries to break off, but then it breaks off over land and then kind of just meanders around as a bunch of energy over the southeast in Florida, and then does try to consolidate a little bit. So there is energy that we need to watch, which is why the National Hurricane Center has a general area of interest highlighted for the southeast. Obviously, we cannot be too focused on the specifics yet because things can change a lot right now. In fact, yesterday in the 18Z model run, so yesterday evening's model run, the GFS was showing this low pressure break off, or I think it was the 18Z or the 12Z. They had the low pressure breaking off and developing into a powerful hurricane in the northern Gulf. And obviously they don't show that this run, so there's still a lot that could change, and we'll definitely watch it over the next several days, as it looks like the tropics, as we enter the month of July and close out the month of June. We have Tropical Storm Barry. We have another thing in the Eastern Pacific. The tropics are certainly active right now, and it looks like it's probably going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and especially if you are new to my channel and you like what you saw today and you like tropical weather information, subscribe and turn on the notification bell as well so you can get videos the moment I upload them. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to all of you out there. I will talk to you again soon.